Well, so welcome everybody to this first afternoon session on the impact of open science on the career in computer science and informatics. I have been charged to moderate this panel, and I'm very happy to be here with three great speakers. So we'll start with an introduction, and then the rule of the game is that each of you have 7 minutes to make an initial statement, then we will move forward to questions from the room and a debate and a discussion. And after that, after 3/4 of an hour, we split up in 3 different breakout groups to keep working, and then we come back here to share the findings with the rest of the public. Okay, so here on my right, your left, we have Ernestina Menasalvas, who is a computer science professor and leads the MIDAS group in the Politecnico University of Madrid. Then Ernestina, you feel free to kill me if I do something that you don't like. I think one of the particularly important points in the curriculum of the rich curriculum of Ernestina is that she was in charge of studies and graduate studies here at the university, which gives a view on what is the life of future researchers and what is at stake. And of course, the arrival of open science brings change to this kind of practices. Then on my left, your right, we have Elisabetta di Nitto, who is a full professor in computer science at the Politecnico di Milano. She was vice chair of the special interest group on software of ACM. She specializes in software engineering and everything related to, this beautiful world of software we have already explored this morning a bit. And then further, we are to the left, Yves Deville, who is professor at the University of Computer Science at the Catholic University of Louvain in Belgium, where he's in charge of everything related to the digital strategy. Have been in charge for over 6 years for all this, and this encompasses a broad range of activities, and in particular what you do leveraging new technologies to open up research and education. So we had a very rich panel, and I will give now the floor to the speakers in the order which is in the program. So Ernestina, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, I don't know, the slides is not the most important part, but maybe I should pass. Okay, so, I had just prepared slides, but you could see when we were just swapping them. I have the pleasure just to be here, and just, first of all, just to thank you, just the organizers, just for inviting me here. After such a nice presentation in the morning of the talk, it was so many aspects that is so nice that now we can cover in the panel. And it is true that I had the pleasure to stay at University Politecnico de Madrid, just in charge of all the master programs, doctorate programs. And one of the things that while being there, I just realized, I am computer scientist, but just being at Universidad, just as charge of all the studies, is that one of the main challenges that we have to face is how to measure the quality of master programs, of master degrees, of students, of doctoral theses, of professors, and always this problem, all these challenges regarding to how to evaluate or to assess the quality of things. So I was just putting in this slide that if you go to Google, you just find rankings of everything. You have rankings of universities, ranking of researchers, ranking of topics, rankings of everything. And the thing is, just in the morning we could just hear that we should not go just for numbers, because sometimes the numbers can be misleading and can take us just to a fake sense of, not quality, but that we will be measuring more than quality, the popularity of certain topics, of certain things in Google. And so I was just checking also, and if you look, you can see that there is technology these days that we can just use, for example, with knowledge graph, with graph-based technologies, that we can just analyze and see, well, by topics, by different links, that we can see which are the people that are hubs of knowledge, that are the ones that are related in certain topics. And my question was, why instead of having all these lists that we are managing, for example, in our case in Spain, that we have list of the journals in which you should publish if you want to be accredited for being whatever professor, or if you want to be full professor, or if you want to just defend your thesis, then you have to have at least one paper published here or there. And the thing is, well, we're just like measuring everything equally, and different topics, even in computer science, has different levels of popularity, or maybe it is easier to get this publication on one journal or another, and this is really one measure of quality. This is something I would ask and just to discuss later on. We are just saying, and well, in the morning we have this example that is the same one piece of software here, or just all this coding for this. So here I say the same. It's the same, just a paper that has, maybe has not so much citation because it is just such an important piece of knowledge, and some other that is simply something that is very like trendy topic, then it will have much more citations. But we are just measuring the same with the same measurements, and this is, well, I think that is not fair. So we should just use all these. We have open science, open sources, and we have a lot of technology that will make it possible to measure the quality of research, the quality of publications, the quality of software, the quality of our work, and not necessarily all these ranked lists that we find so often. But for this, and this, I had also just one slide just saying that, well, this is being said that in order to make this possible, we need, because we have all these young researchers that are just starting their careers, and they have to move in this world in which we have open science. But for them to be really moving forward to open science, we need the senior researchers just really to push forward to open science, just really to motivate them and to just put all these practices, good practices, and just to start motivating and also making the policymakers that it is possible that even in open science and with everything in open, just to be able to measure the quality and to have better ways to measure the quality. I think for the moment, I will stop here with these messages, and then we will continue later. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot. So now, Elisabetta, Sure, go ahead.
Okay, sorry for taking some time. So I wanted to use the slides because I wanted to remember this definition. Open science, according to the Open Science Framework, in 2017 was defined as a collection of actions designed to make scientific processes more transparent and results more accessible. And I guess that this is very important because it is the future of science and technology development. So essentially, by ensuring the accessibility of our results. So the point is that, yes, for sure, thank you. For sure, open science is important, and it is the way in the future we will do the research. But thinking at the career development of an individual, the question that I have for you and that I hope we can discuss today are the two ones that you see downstairs, down there. So is transparency good or bad for career development? And is the implementation of open science actions something affordable for an individual researcher? Because it is clear that we as a community should get there. The point is how to help individuals in getting there and being able to afford open science research. Why am I asking these questions? First of all, on transparency. We have heard also this morning in the early career workshop that clearly, when we do research, one of the problems that we have is that we feel attached to our product, no? It is our intellectual product. And so the question that we may ask ourselves is whether sharing our intellectual property with others is a good thing or a bad thing. And in that sense, we need to learn that we need to keep the distinction between intellectual property, which remains ours, and the possibility to openly share this intellectual property to the others under well-specified constraints. And so on the one side, we do have the mechanisms, and we need to learn as individuals these mechanisms. So we need to use mechanism for patenting. Of course, publications is another way to protect intellectual property. No, we publish, and therefore we are the authors of what we publish. But also, for instance, open source licenses are very important for keeping intellectual property. Sometimes people make available as open source some piece of code, but without any license. This is clearly a problem for intellectual property. So the point is, we can we can work for transparency, but we need to know under which conditions we can offer transparency, still keeping the intellectual properties for ourselves. The second point is that implementing an open science approach, a set of open science actions, means not only, for instance, to put on GitHub a piece of software, but means to be able to transform that piece of software into something that others can use and can develop. And this requires a lot of work. Same consideration is when we make available data. Sometimes I see, especially as reviewers of publications, I see Excel files full of data without any explanation that are made available for replicability. Well, this is not, it's true that data are made available, but they are made available in a way that it doesn't allow people to really use them. So I wanted to bring your attention to these points and to the fact that probably the individual researchers, especially young researchers, must be supported in doing this kind of activities. So it's something that we cannot assume that comes for free. Sorry for the problems.
So I would like to present in a few minutes some elements related to open science and impact on career development. So I'm Yves Deville from University UC Louvain in Belgium, and I would like first to describe what we do in open science in my university, and then to talk a little bit on the impact on career development, and then just develop two aspects related to the challenges of open science. Training, and the second one is evaluation of research, which are two major topics. So in my university, the idea is to use open as the main objective for the strategy, the digital strategy. And you know that the two missions of the university are research and training or learning. And so we are doing open education and open science. I won't define open science, it was done before, so let's directly describe what we do. So we have two pillars. The first one is open education, the second one is open science. And the way we decline open science is totally aligned to what Roberto described this morning. Three domains: open access, open data, and open source. And the three together, they form a coherent set with a lot of synergies between all of them, but described in the morning. Okay, why? What are the benefits of open science? So this is a standard picture describing what the benefits of open science for the researchers, but also for the community and also for the public benefits. But for the researcher, what is the impact on career development, which is the topic of today's discussion? Here I just put some aspects related to the impact: citations, reputations, diffusion, efficiency of research, quality and integrity, collaboration, and social impact. Okay? And I put a small chart here explaining how open access, open data, and open source can contribute to this impact on career development. And you can see that most objectives can be achieved through open access and open data and open source. Okay, now the first challenge is training and awareness. Why? Because open science is not obvious. If someone has never heard about open science, if you try to convince him or her, it could be a difficult job. And so the idea is to train people. And we have various publics. The first one are PhD students. We must explain them, we must convince them. And this can be done through doctoral classes. Then we have all researchers and research labs. So what we want to do is to organize seminars, okay? Just to discuss what do you think are the positive aspects, what are the problems with open science, to discuss that with researchers. And then what we do also is young professors. We do seminars to explain them and to guide them through open science. And then we also organize a set of training modules for all researchers, but also the staff. The staff is also important, not only academics and researchers, but also the staff. And obviously, students. Why not explain, why not convince students from the beginning that open science is important, and to confront them to these ideas? Okay, now the evaluation of research. One of the key messages for me today is that if we want open science to succeed, then we need to revise the way research and researchers are evaluated. Okay? And there's a difference between qualitative and quantitative criteria for research evaluation, and sometimes we are mostly doing quantitative instead of qualitative. I'll come back later on the impact of indicators. Indicators are good, but what do we really measure with those indicators? Okay, especially if, in order to evaluate the impact, you use what we call a proxy, such as the impact factor of a journal, to evaluate the quality of a paper. And how to evaluate, how to take open science into account when evaluating the research, the quality of the research of a researcher. The impact of the impact factor. So impact factor, the idea here, you have the impact factor of Nature journal, citation 2014, okay? The impact factor is the average number of citation of a Nature paper in 1 year. So in 2004, you see that 14% of the paper received more than 40 references, citations. The impact factor of Nature is 40. It means that in 86% of the cases, a paper published in Nature doesn't receive the impact factor, number of citations. It's much less. So the high impact factor doesn't measure the quality of the majority of the papers, but measure the popularity of a very, very, very tiny number of papers. Impact factor is a very bad proxy to evaluate the quality of a paper. Impact factor has a lot of other problems, but I won't discuss that. So now, not only you have to publish in order to not to perish, but you have also to publish in high impact journals. Okay, now there are a lot of new stuff in research evaluation. You know maybe the DORA declaration, the Leiden Manifesto. The European is doing also a lot of stuff. I hope these slides will be on the web so that you can click on them. I won't have time to discuss them, but DORA on research assessment, there are a nice set of rules to follow in order to evaluate nicely research, taking into account open science. And DORA, one of the basic principles is do not use journal-based metrics. Very strong. Then you have the Leiden Manifesto, another set of 10 rules, nice also. Mostly the idea is that in order to evaluate the quality, you can use quantitative evaluation, but only if it's guided to support qualitative assessment. Okay, the EC is also providing evaluation criteria. Okay, another report. I mean, we don't have time to discuss them. And here it's the one university in Belgium, University of Ghent, is publishing 8 criteria how to evaluate research. And this is taking into account open science, and that's a nice way of doing evaluation without too much impact factors. Okay, that's it for my talk.
Okay. Thanks a lot. And now, Harald, Manuel, with all this disruption, I'm a bit lost. How much time do we have left?
We have questions and answers session right now, so I suggest to proceed with that and we decide.
Okay, that's it. Now I need to go there. So, this is a question. These questions from the public. You heard the panelists. What I heard is quite a bunch of interesting points, right? About is it possible, affordable to do open science? Is it useful? What are the challenges for evaluations, the challenges for careers? I'm sure you have a lot of questions about all this. Please come up and who has any questions in the room? Letizia?
I can ask Roberto. Do you suggest any?
I will repeat the question.
I can speak quite loudly. So, do we have resources like videos, like? I see you have some good URL that we can reuse if we want to teach like our PhD students about this odd task. So if you have this kind of resources, it would be very, very useful.
Okay, so repeating the question for remote audience here, the question by Letizia Jacker is about the availability of materials that you can use actually to explain, train, motivate researchers and students about the best practices in open science. So, who wants to come here and answer? Maybe Yves or Elisabetta?
Just a few words on this question, very important question.
Ernestina, if you want to go.
What we do in my university is that we are setting up doctoral classes, and the objective is that all the material developed for these classes should be Creative Commons and could be used by anyone. And we are also doing some research on just what is the existing material for open science. And if you just scroll on the web, you will see that there exist some videos, there exist some slides, but not a whole course for the moment. But there are many resources available, and most of the people doing open science believe in Creative Commons, so everything is available. The problem is to have something, a coherent set of material.
Yes, maybe I can provide some elements for you also, Letizia. So the issue that Yves raised is important. It's not just about having material, but also coherence of the material which is inside. Because open science is a very broad term. So what has been done in France is that there is this National Committee for Open Science, so they decided to work together to create something which is called a passport for open science that is given to all the PhD students in France, to all the doctoral schools. It is very, very simple. There's not a lot of material. I think this is available only in French, as far as I know. Maybe an English translation will be made available, and I can share the link if you want also. And I think this would be interesting. So instead of having each institution working on its own material, we could try to coordinate a bit more, and even at the national, international level, here, Informatics Europe could play a key role, I think, in the coordination effort. So, other questions? Anyone there?
Okay, I'll also shout my question loud so that you can hear it. So I saw, depending on who was talking, you could raise the question, is it possible to have open science? Is it beneficial? I think the main question should be is, how do we do it? What are the best practices to achieve it?
Okay, so they're repeating the question. So the question is, what are the best practices for open science here? So giving back to the panel. Who wants to come?
We can also use these mics because we can't transmit to the internet anyway.
Okay.
Stop me going back and forth. We have given up on the internet. This is a full present small session.
The question is what can we do concretely and how we can achieve this. The answer, I mean, I am not, as Yves is, a researcher focusing, studying, let's say, open science. I am really a practitioner in this respect, in the sense that I am working in contexts, typically, for instance, European projects, so projects funded by the European Commission, in which they asked us to do open science in general, and in particular open access as a particular instantiation of open science, but in general open science. And the problem that I see is that as practitioners, we try to do our best and we try to use common sense, but we don't have, maybe it's just my problem or the problem of the people I'm working with, but there is not much, let's say, generalized culture and knowledge on how to actually do it. So in that sense, I'm glad to hear that there are initiatives, concrete initiatives in concrete institutions in which that really are investing in this area. And probably what we need to do is to transform these specific investments into a generalized investment, at least all over Europe, but of course the objective is to invest all over in the world. So I don't know if my colleagues have...
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The feeling is the same. I'm also just working as a researcher, and we have to do open science as a result of working in European Union projects. But also, I think that is ethically something that we should do, because the money that we receive for our research is public, so we have to bring back to the society all that we have been able to do research because of all this funding. So all the research that we do should be put just into the hands of all the society. And this has, as I have said, I think that is a matter, well, Professor Yves was mentioning this, that senior professors and senior researchers has to just motivate all the people working in their groups just to do that. And of course, we have just from there just to try to also work with policymakers, so all this research that is being done in open science mode will be able just, that will not hinder the possibility of the new researchers having their quality being measured or just promoted for certain positions. But definitely, I think it is in the hand of senior researchers, seniors, I mean, just to teach from the very beginning, from students to the doctoral students, postdoc, and all in our groups, just to see that this is the way, and that we have to see which are the benefits and how we can go for that. So this is in my view. Thank you.
So the question is, from a practical point of view, how to do open science. Maybe a few basic stuff. If you publish a paper in non-access journal, it's all right, no problem. But please put your preprint in some open access, green access depots on in France, archive, wherever you want. Maybe some you have some embargo period, maybe yes. But anyway, your preprint will be available freely everywhere. That's, for me, one of the first points to do to achieve open science. That's very simple to do. No effort. If you want to publish in an open access journal, good. But first, green open access is the way to realize open science, open access. Second practical point. If you are managing data, a lot of data, just think if those data could be useful for other researchers. If you think that the answer is yes, then maybe just ask people, what should I do in order to make my data available? And third point, if you are developing a software, not everybody is doing that, but if you are developing or using a software, try to see if open source is a good way to do it. If you develop, just think if someone might be interested by my software. If yes, just look what open source is. Just 3 basic rules, and with that, open science will have a great future.
Can I just add something? So, yeah, it's true. We need to do this, but at the same time, we also need to avoid the risk of overwhelming the community with a lot of, let's say, unorganized results. No, there could be papers, could be data, etc. So there should be some kind of discipline in doing so. For instance, in the case of papers, if we publish a paper and we upload the paper in some archive, then I guess this paper will have to be classified in some way. We will have to pay specific attention to this in order to allow other people to find what we have put there. And this is particularly critical, I think, not too much for papers because somehow they are classified by the publishers, but for other artifacts, in particular data, and also open source software. For data nowadays, I've seen that there are new publication venues for data. So there are publishers that are offering kind of journals that allow researchers to publish data in a structured way. I think this could be a good opportunity to be forced to give a structure to what we publish, to explain what we are publishing in a way that can be really reused by others. Because otherwise the risk to me, especially for data, is that people, yes, will find data, but will not know exactly how to use it. And I would say that also for open source software, we have this danger. If we look into GitHub, we notice that there is a large amount of repositories that are there, include software, but essentially software that is not used by anyone, or is used just by a few people. So in some sense also throwing open source software in a repository and leaving as it is without any maintenance, any support, is a waste of resources, no? And this is something that I think we should work on as well.
So I have, maybe, if I may, I have a comment on this. I think this is a very interesting, you see these 2 different points, right? Okay, it's easy, you should do it, and the other side, well, but are we just creating a mess with all this sharing of data? Maybe a conceptual, you remember, I do not know if everybody was in this presentation, kind of presentation I managed to give this morning, but there are different levels, okay? One thing is making sure you don't lose data or publication or software which is potentially important, but maybe it is not, but you don't want to lose it, so you should archive it. Having something in archive is important because you don't lose it for the future. Then a second level, which is different, is kind of classifying and putting a label and putting a stamp and saying this particular object, which is actually archived and available right there, is useful, is valuable for this particular application or objective. The second level, this is more costly. Okay, so having the quality stamp on top of something requires an effort to go through it, evaluating properly with proper condition, or even if you want to go to the full reproducibility that was mentioned this morning, it's a huge effort to make a piece of software actually reusable by somebody else or reproducible. So whether you need to go up to this level, it depends on what you are doing. But there are simple things that should stay simple and should be done. Like, for example, having green open access or self-archiving, etc., is fundamental. But avoiding the mistake of considering that putting a paper on your web page is self-archiving. Self-archiving means that you do the archiving, not that the archive is your web page, because your web page will disappear. So you need to find an archive and put the paper in an archive. And you find an archive, I'm sorry for being politically incorrect here, this is not academia.edu or ResearchGate, right? These are private companies that are building a social network for researchers out of which they extract value that they try to sell back to us. Okay, you have premium accounts. That's not a scholarly infrastructure. That's not an archive. Okay, when you need to look for an archive, you need an institutional open access long-term archive. There are many around. So even simple things require some thinking. And this is where it is our responsibility to train the younger people to actually avoid the pitfalls, avoid predatory journals, avoid social networks that present themselves as archives, this kind of thing. I mean, so a little bit of education is really needed to avoid this kind of people. Sorry, no, Harald, you had a question.
I really like the general impact analysis that you gave us, Yves. And I'd like to put a question on topic because I get recently many questions from faculty, especially those on tenure track, asking how are you going to evaluate my research if journals are basically from the impact factor out of the game, which is fine. Can we use any other numbers? The question is, there's kind of an uncertainty in the game for the young academicians in a sense. What will be and how? Can we use numbers? What kind of citations, as an example, or other numbers to show impact on the quant dimension beyond, of course, the qual dimension?
Maybe a few words to answer this question. For young researchers, I think it's tough because the evaluation is changing and the rules of the game are not very clear. So when I am analyzing different new ways to evaluate research, they share at least one common aspect: transparency. So the idea at least is to explain what you will evaluate and how you will do it, what measures you will use. Okay? If we have just this maybe will simplify the life of young researchers. Transparency for me is the most important issue when dealing with evaluation.
So if we add citations to be used, that would be part of it?
Citations, it's a nice measure of the impact. Citation of the paper, not the citation of the journal, the impact factor, which is totally different. But citation of paper on Scopus, on Google Scholar, everybody is doing that. No problem with that. But it shouldn't be the only way to evaluate. We shouldn't reduce an evaluation to just one number, the age index of a researcher. Okay. We should also pay attention to the diversity of domains. Citations are very different in maths or in biology.
Oh,
Are you done discussing? Thank you.
Okay, so now I lost track. So, okay. But maybe I may add a small element, Harald, if you allow me. I mean, this is a big, I do not know what happens in your different organization institution, right? But it is a big discussion element of the evaluation of young researchers, because when you tell people you need to spend time making your own data available, etc., and they tell you, but I'm only evaluated on my age index or the impact factor of the journal where I am. You discuss with your colleagues and say, yes, but we know it is not good, but this is how the other institutions are going to hire my students, so I need to do that. So maybe here we need to actually look inside and ask ourselves, how are we hiring the new faculty? Okay. I have seen some examples. In some institutions, for example, they say, we don't actually care about this kind of age index, whatever. I mean, maybe it is an element, but what we want is, you are a candidate, show me the N with N between 5 and 10 or 3 and 7. I mean, best products of your research related to this position, show me your production in education, etc., and we will look at that particular part. For example, in France, to give you an idea, in this plan that you will see there, the ministry has decided that for funding research, they will forbid the funding agency in France to use impact factors or age indexes in the form you need to fill in. This is a huge change, right? Last year, the last application we made, you had to put the age index impact factor of all the researchers coming in. And this was used in some Excel spreadsheet to just say, hey, let's drop all these applications and move to those ones. So it's a first step. So we are in a transition phase. So it's on us, right? How do we hire? This will have an impact on how our youngest will decide to work. So. Other questions? Enrico?
Enrico Nardelli, Roberto and Informatics Europe President. My remark is a bit articulated. So clearly the forces against open science are mainly economical. And because there is a business, and they have nothing against business, but not if business prohibits us to do science. Unfortunately, we cannot fight this big economic power because we are not in desire, we are doing science. So I think that working on education is highly advocated. Education of younger people entering science that, as Yves has said, find a difficult situation. Because we, the older people, we have grown up in a world where people read the paper and evaluated the content. Now the younger people hear about numbers, impact factor, citation, this measure, and they are the generation, I call them the one-click generation. I mean, they want to condensate everything in one action, one number. And the science is not this. Science is multi-criterion. You cannot say, very rarely you can say this is the best paper in a field. In most of cases, you have a paper which is good under some criteria and not under some other criteria. So this multifaceted evaluation of science is something that cannot be condensed in bibliometry. Now, it is clear that, above all from the political side, politicians want to condensate everything in few numbers because they can decide better. So we have to educate also them that science is not like 100-meter run in the Olympic Games, then you have the first, the second, and third. Science is much more complex, and education, higher education, is also highly complex. So we should train them that science is a complex business and has to be evaluated appropriately. And therefore, I think there is this other education action that we have to do towards the politicians and the general public, because the general public also, they tend to measure scientists like, how good you are, which is your age index. Nowadays, in the pandemic situation, also in TV newspaper and news show. I mean, scientists have been presented is very famous because as H index more than 100 or something like this. So we have to educate also, I think, the general public, because mostly the general public doesn't really understand how complex is the business of evaluating science. And I have read about, Roberto, the news you have put on various mailing lists about the new strategy of open science in France, which is very good, and I hope that it can act as an infection in a good way, so that other countries are moved toward this direction. And I wonder, and I think that probably we as Informatics Europe, for our community, we should try to see what we can do as a community in discussing with the European Commission and within our members, our countries. We should discuss how we can support this movement towards a better way of evaluating science. Okay, thanks.
Okay. It was a. Do you want to?
Yes. Okay. Just to comment on one sentence that you start with, you said that we cannot fight these economical forces. I don't agree with that.
We don't have the force, the economical force.
I don't agree with that. Wow. We, as researchers, we are producing research. We are publishing papers. We are choosing to publish in commercial journal. And we are defining the evaluation criteria. We are doing all the job. If us, researchers, we want to change the rule of the game, we have the full power of this economy. Everything is in our hands. We just have to do it. We don't depend on them. We can do that alone.
Yeah, I agree with this. This action on our side is a political action, it's not an economical action. Of course, if we restrain from cooperating and from producing, if we shift our publication focus towards open venues, then I agree with you, we can win. But this will be a political action, like workers that go on strike to fight against the capitalists.
No, because we don't have to fight against them. We just have to choose and decide. No strike, just publishing elsewhere, changing the evaluation rules, just dropping off the impact factor. Researchers can do that. We don't need political actions. Researchers can do it.
Yeah. When I say political action, I mean not something done by politicians.
Okay.
Something that is acting on the social relations in the community, which is politics for me.
Okay, I agree with you. Okay.
So I wonder if I think we have still some time for questions, right? So, any other question in the room?
Can I just?
Just go ahead.
No, this is really a question for you because I'm not really expert in this, but I am hearing, let's say, a connection that is being mentioned several times between open science and research evaluation. I'm wondering what kind of relation do you see between these two aspects? I'm asking this because, yes, okay, I agree that for what concerns research evaluation, we need to pay specific attention to issues such as mis-evaluating someone considering the impact factors of the journals in which this guy has been publishing, that maybe is better than the impact factor of someone else, but maybe the papers of the first guy are worse than the other one. So I completely agree with this point. No? So research evaluation should probably be brought back to the original evaluation. When we were reading the papers someone was producing to evaluate this person on the basis of our own opinion on the papers, no? And this is what we were doing before this citation numbers, etc., were coming out. And this is one thing. On the other side, we have open science, and we say, okay, open science means making our products more transparent, using possibly some rigorous set of activities to accomplish this transparency. What I don't see is the connection between the 2 points.
Well, maybe let me try to provide some insight on what is going on right now. Okay, so originally this battle started with the open access thing. Then we moved to open science. So the term open science is 1999, if you look back at when it was started. But it took a long time to get traction. Now it is becoming a political term. Okay. And so what happens is that you see there are politicians issue statements for European Commission, etc., where they say that open science should be taken into account into evaluation. So you are asking, what does it mean? But it is already coming. Doesn't mean the politician know, but it is coming. So it's better that we have an answer to this before somebody has. So a simple answer is to start taking into account in the evaluation of the researchers, of their career, etc., several aspects of the activity of a researcher that are not taken into account today. So, for example, the time that you spend in making available the software that you have developed to do your research, this is today not taken into account at all in Italy and in a bunch of our countries. So you see the connection between open science and evaluation can be this. I mean, taking into account, rewarding you for a part of the work that you do that was not counting before. So this is a positive way of seeing things. So giving you credit for something that you do. Then the other question that you are maybe asking is also, well, okay, but if I need to do evaluation, so saying this researcher is better than the other, I mean, this is a gradient given, etc., how does open science help or not me? And these are the questions you were raising already before. So it's a challenge we need to work together on. Because if you get rid of all numerical indicator, then I should not say this, being Italian, okay? But I mean, some tradition, old tradition that I'm sure do not exist any longer in any decent academic institution is kind of mafia-related behavior. I mean, so I say that my friend is very good because he is my friend and not because they have an objective value. So you don't want to go back to that, right? But at some moment there is a tension between quality evaluation and objective numbers. That's the reason why numbers were so successful, because they give you the illusion of objectivity. Okay. So how can we get back to something which is no longer an illusion of objectivity, but it is actually deeper than just counting numbers? And this is I wonder if this is just me who is unlucky.
No,
because
you are discussing with him.
Yes.
Keep discussing together.
Yes, but I hear it it's really complicated to be here. I hope you appreciate I have a biblical patience, but now I'm getting to a point which is complicated. So I do not know if this is an element.
Yeah, now I understand better. Thank you.
More questions? I have been told that Yves has a beautiful activity for us.
Yeah, but I think it's time. I think we won't have time to do it.
No, we decided to give up the breakout because it is too complicated now. So.
Too bad.
So but we want to do your activity with all the room. Yeah. Let's do this.
Okay, the idea is to do a kind of game. Okay, so we'll divide the crowd in 2 teams. Yes, exactly. It's part of the game.
This is a jingle for starting the game.
It won't be what's the name of this new video series, Squid Game? Okay, no, not today. Okay, the yellow and the green. The yellow, you will be the dystopian guys. Okay, so the idea is you will try to set up arguments, okay, explaining what happened in a dystopic world for open science and evaluation, okay? how bad will it be? What will be the behaviors of researchers, of the evaluators, and so on? So you have to describe a dystopian world, and the green team will have to describe an utopian world, okay? Everything is nice. There's an echo over there. Okay, everything is nice. What will happen in this beautiful world with respect to evaluation of research? Okay, just you have to set up arguments, and then the idea is to exchange. Okay, to exchange, and you will okay. In my world, it will be this, and the other team will have to answer this. Okay, if you think this will happen, here is what I suggest to do so that it will not happen. Okay? And when a green person will develop, this is what I would like to do in my utopic world, you have this side, have to describe what can I do to achieve this. Okay? So that you will have to take both acts, positive and negative. So maybe we can start by this theme. In a dystopian world, what do you think would be, what would be the problems? What would be bad behaviors for researchers? What are your ideas of how bad the world could be with respect to evaluation of research in open science? Yes, one idea.
So let's imagine that Slovenia is a very small country, and everyone knows each other. And I'm afraid that in my work, I'm going to evaluate it by my colleague.
Okay.
Everything is going to be okay. So everyone is going to pass the quality evaluation. I can invite some other foreign professors, but I will also invite professors who I know that he will evaluate my research work perfectly.
Okay, the review process is very bad, right? So, the green team, what could you do to avoid this to happen? What would you suggest? What would be the actions that you want to take to avoid this world of bad reviewing?
It could be to make it clear who have been the evaluators and let the community decide. I mean, if the reviewer of the paper are public, and you see that the reviewer of University A are from one of University B and C that are close to them and have previous work with them, then you can understand what's going after. So if the review process is fully transparent, then you can see that you have been evaluated by international colleagues from the other side of the world, and I have been evaluated by the colleague in my city, and then the reader can understand on their own.
Okay, so yeah, so the answer that I understand is full transparency.
Yes.
Is the answer to this problem. So now, the green team, what is for you in this utopian world? What would be, what will be this utopian world with respect to evaluation? Could you describe some aspect of it? Just one aspect? Yeah.
Very utopian. It would be wonderful if the evaluation would be done by the citizens. By the citizens, not by the press. So that everything is so open that the normal people can like vote for the idea research and the idea professor because they have found this open knowledge.
Okay, so you are generalizing citizen science to citizen evaluation, which is a brand new concept. Why not? Yes, sure. That's the idea of brainstorming. Okay, so now this the yellow team. What do you think? What could we do to achieve this idea of citizen science or citizen evaluation? What do you think? Yeah.
We have educated
all our population to understand computer science and AI, so they're actually able to do the evaluation.
I mean, AI will do the job? Artificial.
So the education movement in Europe has succeeded in introducing education for children and citizens on AI and computer science. So they will be able to do the evaluation that my colleague suggested.
Okay, so it means education. So education for young
teams.
Young people.
Yeah.
I think they have switched teams. So you have dystopian idea and then the positive. But anyway.
Yes, understand. Okay. Okay. Now let's continue. A dystopian idea. What would be a bad idea? A bad state of the world? Yeah. Could you please remove your mask?
So I'm afraid that dystopian science might become a pay-to-win game where I have a publishing or the open science publishing journal or something like this, and then I can ask for lots of money, and people who just want to publish can go there. Other people who like open science for what it's for real won't go there, but still you will get pay-to-win strategies inside this game. Does that make sense?
So, if I understand, do you mean that researchers will have to pay a lot in order to...
I'm saying that researchers could only pay, and then the reviewers there could be just accepting the paper because they receive the money.
Okay. Okay.
Dystopian.
Yes. Okay. So because researchers have to pay, so
because
they will accept papers very, very easily to get the money.
But actually, just to say, this is not very dystopic. If you remember, some 20 years ago, I will not mention the names, right? But the bogus conferences in computer science where you paid and your paper is automatically accepted. I mean, we know that. Okay?
Yeah, but here the idea is that if the researchers are paying to be published, then the money is quite easy to do. You don't have to organize a conference. You just have to accept the paper to make it open access. You don't have to find.
You
don't have to find subscriptions to buy to read these papers.
But the point is that if you I will. Do you remember Yasted? Somebody of you?
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay.
Okay. So
the focus conference did exactly that. You paid and the paper was published. Point.
Now, the green team, what can we do in order to avoid this dystopian world where just based on money and we just publish papers just to make money? We can do nothing. You just to accept it, right? No future.
Sorry, I don't understand exactly the mechanism you propose, because traditionally, if I publish a paper, there has to be a committee selecting the reviewers. Now, the fact that the reviewers are known afterwards does not mean that the reviewers are known before. Okay, so it is important that once the paper is published, that the reviewers are known. But during the process, there might be that situation that if I have just submitted the paper and I know who my reviewers are, whether they are colleagues or citizens, if I have the money, I can try to drive them so that my paper is accepted. I can understand this if reviewers are known enough. But if there is, as I think there should always be, I mean, I do not think there can be a peer evaluation network where you just launch a paper and it gets reviewed automatically. I think there has to be some editorial committee. If there is an editorial committee which do this action of selecting reviewers and being the interface between you and the reviewers, then I think this problem might be overcome. But even if it's not completely overcome, I think that in the end, it's not really a problem. I mean, I think that in the sense that we should go back to why scientists started publishing papers. I mean, we started centuries ago publishing papers to exchange information. At that time, science was a business of very few rich people that could allow themselves to do science. And then it started increasing, and with the increase of volume, then you had to somehow put a filter, because everybody wanted, I mean, everybody would like, I can be a scientist, so I will write something I will publish it. So. And then this filter was mainly due because you had a print process on physical paper. Okay? Now we don't have any more this limitation. So to a certain degree, I don't think it is a problem that we have a paper which is published which are very marginal or even wrong, as long as we have education on people to understand, and as long as we, as scientists doing evaluation, we understand that the number of paper, the quantity of paper, the length of paper is not a measure in itself, it's what is written in the paper. So if I have to actually read the paper, then it doesn't matter to me whether you have paid, because independently from the fact that you paid or not, if your paper has a quality, then it's okay. So I will not be worried about the fact that you pay. I mean, it's independent level from the quality of science. I mean, you may be a bad person ethically because you pay, but as a scientist, your research is good. I mean, your result is.
You might be the other way around. So you might pay, you might get that low quality paper published, but nobody's gonna look for it. So it's still okay. Nobody would give it importance in that sense. So if the quality is good, I'm taking your point of view now. I'm not in the discussion. So yeah, I think you're right.
In some sense, I think we should consider this. A bit like any other business. You have a restaurant, very good restaurant, very cheap restaurant. And if you understand the quality of food, then you can choose. I mean, we are in science, so we are the ones doing the evaluation. And I think that we should not be worried about the fact that there are too many papers. I mean, because in the end, we have to come back to the old action of reading the paper and evaluating the content. Otherwise, we have no way of coming out of this situation.
Okay, maybe a last round? You have time for just one? So the green team, Utopian World, give just an idea of this utopian world on publication, on open data, on open source, whatever you think, what would be this ideal world with respect to open science. Just one aspect of it. What do you want to happen? Just one idea. No? Yeah? Yes?
We want science for good. We want science to do good. We want science for social good.
Sound?
Science for
Science.
good.
Science for social good.
Yeah, but this is independent of open versus not open science, or you see a dependency between doing science for good and doing science, doing open science.
I see that the data set, if I make my data set closed, then I won't have anybody. I only have myself to make it.
Okay, let's precise this view. For example, data set in this utopian world, all data sets are open. Okay? At least without violating copyrights and GDPR stuff and so on. So all data sets are open. Okay? That's a nice world. So, what do you think can be done to achieve this objective? What would you do to achieve this objective? What kind of political rules, what kind of
But should they achieve the objective or should they contract the
No.
objective?
They need to achieve it.
They need to achieve.
Yes.
So I think that, I would say that dystopian, but I think it's something that we could take in our good practices for the future to evaluate in a different way the way professors arrive to be professors. Because now you need to write in that import to have many papers and so on and so forth, the age index and so on. So if you find a different way to evaluate people that are to be professors, then you will open the data because you won't keep it for you for 3 years and you'll publish that paper that will arrive in the Nature and will make you the shiny professor.
Okay.
And then
yes.
we won't spend the same money in Spain and Italy and in Oxford to research on the same topic. We will spend the money to research on the same topic together, not on the same time, for the same result. But we keep it for ourselves. So we open everything, and we found a different way to evaluate the best among us.
Okay, it's a nice idea. The idea of what I understand what we're saying is that maybe evaluation should focus on collaboration instead of competition. Okay, being the first. If you are the first but you are keeping the data, it's not good. Evaluation should be bad. If you are doing something and publishing your data, and maybe you won't have other papers related to those data, but others are collaborating with you, it should be very nice for your evaluation. That's a very nice idea, that collaboration should be taken into account for evaluation. Yes?
You might also positively evaluate people, also from a research point of view, to make the data available, because making the data available is hard work. You have to clean it, you have to put lots of effort in finding the right data, and then you have to explain to us how you use it and how you can use it. Even independently of using the data for research, just evaluating positively the fact that you make the data available. Often that's for some kind of research might be the hardest work rather than just running out with the data afterwards.
Yes, totally, yes. The idea is that to evaluate not only on publication of papers, but also publication of data, but also on softwares.
So I think we should more or less stop here because we have a small break before the presentation, right? Okay. And just to close this session, it was kind of disrupted technically, but I think globally pretty interesting to see the different points of view, different levels of awareness and maturity depending on where we are. If I can share just a feeling, I think we are in a situation where we are more or less called to deconstruct mechanisms that were actually built in our genes as researchers. Now, for example, you give credit to the first publisher, or you give credit to the person that has a large community, and then this provides the H index, whatever, etc. And then also maybe introspect a little bit more, because there are traditions depending on the fields, for example, in mathematics, or in biology, or in chemistry, life sciences, physics. They do not work the same way in giving credit to the researchers. So how we can take advantage of this, it's a political opportunity, this open science thing, because the politicians are listening to this open science mantra today. How can we take advantage of this to create a better world? Not necessarily for us. I mean, I'm kind of old, okay? I will probably retire in a few years, so I don't care too much about promotions of professors. But we should care about our young successors. I mean, our students, our PhD, youngest researchers, etc. So let's go home with this mission, if we can, to think together and work together in preparing a better world for the future researchers, not just for us. For us is We already made it, okay? You are director of department, full professor, whatever, etc. Let's think about the younger generation and see how we can build a better world for them. So see you later.